Are you on the audition track or teaching an excerpt class this year? Well, for me personally, when I left the university, I was basically on my own when it came to preparing excerpts and developing my routine. Maybe you don't have the luxury of weekly lessons with a coach anymore. Well, Viola has you covered.
Yes, at violatootie.com, you can find a new and incredibly thorough resource for violists called Exploring Excerpts. It's a violist guide to building skills for orchestral playing. This is by former Rochester Philharmonic's principal violist, Melissa Matson, and based on her experience of teaching excerpt class at the Eastman School of Music and listening, of course, to countless professional auditions, Melissa has created etudes and exercises to help you work through tricky passages in new and creative ways. And before Melissa's book was released, I actually was fortunate enough to get a sneak peek of Beethoven 5, and it is truly amazing. One of the most fun parts, I think, is that you can enlist your friends who maybe are also auditioning, and you can each play parts and trade them off.
Oh, perfect for excerpt class.
Yeah, wouldn't that be fun?
And if you're not a violist, you can find Ralph Sciano's book, Behind the Screen, which is a detailed look at the winning strategies behind his path to becoming the principal clarinet of the Detroit Symphony. While there may not be a magical formula for audition prep that works for everyone, this book will give you ideas to help you approach your preparation with structure and creativity. It's a must-have resource for any aspiring orchestral musician.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that auditioning it's truly hit or miss, but nothing beats the confidence that comes from feeling prepared. Grab some of these resources to support your audition journey from violatootie.com, VLATUTTI.com.
Hey, everybody. This is part 2 of our conversation with Drew Forde. If you haven't caught part 1 yet, make sure you go back and listen to that. But otherwise, thanks for joining us for part 2 of this conversation with Drew Forde. Welcome to the Musician-Centric Podcast. We are 2 freelance violists living and laughing our way through conversations that explore what it means to be a professional musician in today's world. I'm Steph.
And I'm Liz. And we're so glad you've joined us. Let's dive in. As you're describing this whole crossover connotation, the culture of that sentiment that, you couldn't make it, that sentiment is perpetuated by all the people who aren't making it. Like you said, when none of us are making it, and we all perpetuate that sentiment at an early age. And I had that belief within myself for a while. But the truth is, my ability to play classical music is better because I don't only play classical music anymore. That is 100% true. Or my skill set, I use this example when I talk to students about quartet music, because my quartet likes to play music by living composers, and we do so at least one piece on every program we perform. And it's just a different vibe. There's different skills that are needed than are needed to play a Mendelssohn quartet. And when we first started out, all we wanted to do was play like Mendelssohn and, Beethoven, all this stuff. And we're like, we're never going to be able to find a place in the market with this.
Right.
We're fine at it, but we're not particularly great at it. It's just like something we were trained to do. Now, when we go back, last year we did a commission, and then we played Mendelssohn, and we tied the whole program together, and it was all cultivated in this way. But when we played that quartet, I listened back to the recording. I'm like, oh my God, we're 100% freer as musicians playing Mendelssohn than we were 5 years ago, not pushing ourselves to play this other music that's different and has its own place right now in the musical community. And I think that's so true. Even just like you mentioned in the extra classical article, skills that musicians need to be extra classical. And one of the things you mentioned is improv. And we've talked actually quite a bit this year about improv and those kinds of skills. I can only imagine that they make you an infinitely better classical musician because you have an understanding of the music that wasn't there if you don't have that skill, right?
It's so true. I can't play classical music now without thinking, oh man, And so since we violas are playing the major seventh, we should probably be a little stronger because it creates that tension against the tonic. Or if we're playing the minor third, we need to make sure that we also are present. So the minor mode really sounds like, just understanding the theory of it is like so critical, but not classical music theory, jazz theory.
It's so good.
Is that something that you were trained in, jazz?
No.
Okay, so tell us about how that evolved.
YouTube.
Hey, YouTube can be a great teacher.
Anything on YouTube.
Great teacher.
I am a student of YouTube. I'm a student of YouTube. So I watch a lot of musicians on YouTube who are not string players. I don't watch any string players, actually. I watch a lot of guitarists and pianists and how they talk about jazz and how they talk about improvisation. I was just watching a video on tritone subs last night. And I was like, I kind of get it, but I still don't really... I really don't understand it. It's just so divorced from what we do here. So now I'm like, I go back and I practice and I'm like, oh, these are tritone shapes. Mm-hmm. Oh, this is a major seventh shape, chordal shape. And then when I play Bach, I'm realizing, oh, if I just write jazz theory with Bach, I totally understand what's going on. So if you look at my manuscript now, I've just got like, oh, this is a B7 that goes to an E7 that goes to a D diminished that goes back to E major. Oh, there we go. That's what he meant. Like, oh,
the Neapolitan. Go find a Neapolitan every once in a while.
Oh yeah, Neapolitan.
Yeah, exactly.
Flat
it's a flat
tube.
two. Thank you very much.
No, it just means nothing when it's divorced from the playing. And I think that the way we're taught in the classical realm is like, here is theory, and you're going to do your Schinkerian analysis, and you're going to write down the chord shapes away from your instrument, rather than
and then there's instrumental technique, and like the two are totally separate from each other. That is really true. It's crazy.
We have to be more, we're so siloed. I think that's the conclusion. We are so particularly siloed and specialized that we're actually blind. And I think that if we kind of like remove the blinders a little bit, we really see the context a little bit more, and it makes us more powerful. Maybe we're not Ray Chen or Augustine Hadelich or Hilary Hahn or Yo-Yo Ma or Alyssa Weilerstein, right? Maybe we're not there, but like that doesn't mean we're not valid and we can't like really make beautiful music.
For sure. So you're going into a lot of these educational organizations and talking with students. Is that what you end up doing when you go to these places?
I've been over the past decade of making content. I will get periodically invited to go give talks at schools about entrepreneurship or about just my perspective of being a professional musician. And I just try to tell kids the truth. You know, I'm not trying to like, oh, it's going to be great. You're just going to make
once
so
you win
much
your orchestra
money
job.
once you win your audition. That's not, you got to, or if you get that, you get your DMA and then you go teach, you get a tenured position at an institution to teach other people just like you how to do exactly what you're doing right now.
Well, I'm curious about what the students who are coming out of music schools that you're encountering these days. Do you feel like it's changing? Do you feel like some of this is getting through?
Depends on the school. The conversations that I have at Pepperdine University and the Juilliard School are very different. Like still to this day, I'll talk to Juilliard kids and I will say something very simply. You need to look at your music as a product. I know art is art and it's self-expression. Yes, but it is also a product because people consume it. And I had a little hand raised from the back of the room, and it was a violinist, and she was like, but doesn't that make the art, doesn't that tarnish the art? Doesn't that make it less pure? And I'm like, and I literally just responded to her. I was like, how does thinking about how people will receive it make it less pure? What's wrong with making things that other people might want to listen to? Because otherwise, please excuse my language, but otherwise the process is masturbatory. If you're just doing this for you in front of other people, that's kind of weird.
But
like you gotta.
Yeah, we've had that conversation so many times that like there are often experiences we've had on stage, like in orchestra, that feels that way because it's like, who are we really connecting with here? You know, ourselves, each other on stage. Yeah, who is this for? Who is it for? Yeah, but that's a really valid
product
question
market
to address. Like it should be on a fax somewhere on a website of like how to be an entrepreneurial musician. Like, but what happens to my art if I try to market it? You know, if I try to create a product out of it, it just becomes a thing that people can connect to better, right? Like that's, hey,
I need to make a post
just
about
giving you newsletter ideas.
I'm tired of answering that question. Honestly, I'm writing it down right now.
There
right
is
now.
something
That's going
to
into
that,
the
though.
CRM.
I mean, when you're trying to find yourself as an artist, you have to kind of not make things for other people, but like make what you truly believe in. And there is a part of the process of figuring out who you are as an artist that is just for yourself, right? Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah,
And then
discovery.
maybe, the
Yeah.
discovery, and then maybe the figuring out how other people will relate to it, putting yourself out there, and then knowing that it has value. There is something to the creative process that is just like, produce the art, and that's the part of the process you can control, right? Produce the art, produce the art, produce the art. And then what you're talking about is the other end of it. Okay, promote the art, market the art, package the art.
Let me be clear about what I'm advocating for. Produce the art, and then just like before you release it, just like look at it again. Just be like, who is this for? Okay. Is there a way that I can not change the heart and soul of it, but is there a way that I can kind of, chisel it down and shape it to where it, instead of it just being my pure brainwaves, like put it in a package that other people can immediately hook onto and see, oh, I get what they're saying. Because if it's unintelligible, it's not effective, right? If it doesn't speak to something that's relatable, if it doesn't speak to something that we all experience as humans, or if it doesn't have to always be relatable either. It could be something brand new. That's also valid. I've seen art installations where it's like, I've never looked at the world that way before. That's wild. But there's always a reference point back to something that I do understand. And I think that's where things like serialism and atonal music, they often lose me. And there's no reason why. I mean, there is a real reason why it's used often in horror.
So discomfort.
Because it's just, it's not.
Yeah.
It's so uncomfortable.
Yep. We were talking about the Barber String Quartet and how, nobody really knows the outside movements unless you played it because they're so difficult to listen to. I mean, they're difficult to listen to. My quartet was saying, it's just like nothing compared to the middle movements. And I said, well, everything has its time and place. Like that was written in 1949. Yeah. I mean, what was everybody going through at that time? I bet that music really resonates in certain ways. However, just kind of pull it back to the initial start of this conversation, which is that there is no money in classical music. The general population of human beings out there in this world right now cannot connect to the majority of what we do. And it's very difficult.
Because we don't tell stories.
You can't just that's it is like you guys have just kind of ironed out this two-prong part of the process is like discovering who you are as an artist and your voice and what's important to you. And then that you're not done. You're not done there. Then there's the piece of, okay, who is this for? Why am I doing it? What am I doing it for? And what do I want that person to gain from this experience that I'm giving them? Like that is a very important piece that we don't learn how to do. We just don't learn how to do it. And unless you are in and of yourself entrepreneurial and you go out there and you figure it out for yourself, which a bunch of us are trying to do, wouldn't it be nice? That's just the standard.
Oh, it'd be real nice.
The standard of your career training was that. It's very interesting. Located in a historic mansion in Tacoma Park, Maryland, you might get the impression that the team at Potter Violins are as formal as the breathtaking building that they work in. But when you go inside, instead you'll find the most relatable, skilled, and friendly staff.
Yes, the people at Potter's are what really make it a special place. I love visiting because I know that whoever I work with is not going to make me feel like I'm crazy or just being picky. They're kind of like your favorite bartender. They're great listeners who give you what you need without judgment.
Yes, their technicians are not only super talented, creative, and resourceful, they take the time to collaborate with you so that the process of getting your instrument at its best really feels like a partnership.
So if you're in the area, definitely stop by and introduce yourself to Chris, Rob, Kimberly, Derek, Jim, Melissa, and the whole team, or visit potterviolins.com to find what you need online.
It's so fitting then that their shop is in this beautiful old house because the staff at Potter's really makes it feel like home. You have this follow-up article, which I feel like we've got to mention. So I think maybe the moral of the story here is for anybody listening to subscribe to your newsletter because there's some great material on here.
Yeah.
Please do.
We'll put a link in the show.
And
please do. Thank
you.
you
Discuss the 7 skills every artist entrepreneur has and or needs to have. And some of them are just like integral to business, things like networking and sales and marketing. I love that the first one you put was writing and it also made me go, oh, I know. I literally went, oh, I know. Writing.
That's why the blog page of our website is hidden right now.
Me too. Me too. Look, I'm 32. I've been doing social media for over a decade, and I'm now just starting to write because I saw a video a couple months ago that changed my world. And the video maker was like, he was like, there are fundamental skills when it comes to creating content on the internet and just business in general. Writing is one of those indelible concepts. Everything is writing. When you are trying to get investors or donors, you need to write a business proposal. You need to write a pitch deck. If you need to get people to buy your stuff, you need to write ad copy. If you need people to follow you on Instagram, you need to write your captions. If you want people to follow you and subscribe to your YouTube channel, you need to write your script, because it's all about how you convey your message. If you can't convey your message in a way that's compelling and gets people to listen, it all starts from writing. And writing helps you collect your thoughts and organize them in a way that other people can understand them. And if you don't develop that skill, like I haven't for so long, like my poor girlfriend, she, half the time before I started writing, she was like, I don't understand what you're talking about. And I was like, it's in my head. Why aren't you just reading my brain? And I realized, oh, I'm just not clear. Writing helps you get more clear about your thinking.
I'm an external processor, and so that's true for me too. There's a lot of times where I'm like, dude, I'm saying a thing. How do you not understand what I'm saying? And then when I write, it makes so much more sense because I go back and read it, and I'm like, oh, that didn't make any sense. I should rephrase this. I should rephrase this, and I should.
That was unintelligible.
Yeah. I wonder if. Oh, it's so interesting though, because I know there are people who don't feel as comfortable with writing. As like, I actually I feel comfortable with writing, but it takes a lot of energy. That's the problem I have with it. It's like, it takes a long time to like, I'll just dump a bunch of stuff down and then I have to go back and, read what I'm trying to say and, move things around and whatever. But yeah, I wonder where that skill, like maybe some of us, that skill develops out of necessity though. Get complimented on my email writing a lot, and I'm like, I think it's just because I like had to find a way to communicate clearly, and this was the easiest way to do it. It's good though.
It's true, but it also works when you're working as a freelancer. If you write well, you'll build better relationships with your contractors. They're going to want to work with you if you're concise. It's one of those skills that I said it has a compounding effect, and it stacks upon other skills that you already have or that you will be developing in the future.
I love that you make it relatable to the people who are coming up in today's world, because you know how informal writing has become. Like emails are where texts once were. Texts are like, I mean, sometimes I can't even like understand what someone's actually saying because it's so abbreviated. There's no subject of a sentence anymore. It's like so informal. Yes.
It's just emojis and GIFs.
We all have that one friend that all they do is send emojis or like GIFs. Yeah,
it's a reference of a reference of a reference.
It's the most inside of incentives. But it is still important that you have these skills, because this is how you're going to present yourself in the world. This is how you're going to market yourself. I love that.
It is. It's really good. And it's inspiring to me, because I've been a little bit stuck of like, okay, where on earth do I start? And I don't want to gloss over too. This is a really big pivot, I think, to hear you talk about the social media content and the algorithm game, and how, you can use social media to build a large audience, but that audience isn't necessarily your audience at the end of the day.
You don't own it. Yeah.
So how do you get your audience? And your answer is to be more personal. I mean, writing a newsletter and sending it to people, that is a very personal thing. Not that your content online was not personal. Of course it is, but it's like fed through the machine as opposed to delivered directly to the person getting it.
And that's what I was so excited about it, because I really feel like my audience has become pretty informal in the last at least 5 years, because I haven't really been. I look back at my old posts, and I was writing a lot of like personal stuff in my captions, because I did that because I wanted people to know me and I wanted people to feel me. But when I got a bigger audience, I found that if I don't want that many people knowing something personal about me, because I made a post. It was after Philando Castile was murdered by police. And I made a post called, "Are you going to shoot me too?" And I got some real racist stuff in my comments that I was not ready for at the time. And it's kind of like colored my perception of social media, that where, you know, I could be me and like people can see me, but they see a black man first, and then they see a violist, and then they see me as a human. And so I'm like, I need to change the way I communicate. And so I did for a long time, but it didn't give me the satisfaction. So with this newsletter, I'm developing systems where if you subscribe to my newsletter, I haven't done it yet, but I want to tell my story from the beginning. I want you to know who I am, the type of like my fears, my convictions, like what I'm really going for. So you can like trust me and understand where I'm coming from. Because I think people, they don't really fundamentally know me or my integrity or where I come from as a human being. And I want to develop that more. So that's why I'm excited about the newsletter.
And also... Again, that observation just goes to show that, you know, in a social media kind of setting, like everyone will love you as long as you're posting the things they want to see.
Yes. But, you know, the things that are controversial get the most eyes.
I know. That's true.
Yeah, we know that from our news media.
Yep.
I don't think controversy is necessarily bad. Like, you guys asked me on here because I said there's no money in classical music. And the fact that that's a controversial take is hilarious to me.
No, you're just saying the quiet part out loud.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody knows it's true. We're just not talking about it. We're dancing around it. And
like, how are we going to save this organization? How are we going to save this orchestra? Yeah.
Right.
Well, let's talk about it first. Let's not pretend the house is not on fire.
Yeah.
So, let's just start.
So
I don't smell any
such a
smoke.
fascinating thing to be 4 years out of the shutdown of our industry. And that time was so engaging. And there was so much, I would say, revitalized energy of like, okay, we could do things differently. We can try this. We could try that. We could do all this stuff. And there was all this promise. There was all this like idea that this promise that we're going to do it differently. And now we're going to bring in the big bucks. And now it's not going to be a struggle. And I think we're hitting a point this season where arts leaders in particular and leaders of organizations and just in general in our field are starting to say, oh no, it's still just
the pandemic wasn't the problem.
It's still just as bad as it was beforehand, even though I'm trying everything I know right now.
Part of it is the economics. Like I said, we have to learn business. We have to learn economics. If you are a non-for-profit based institution that relies on donations in times of higher interest rates, in times of economic contraction, when companies' profit margins are receding, they don't have to protect their profits from Uncle Sam, which means they don't have to donate to you, which means they have fewer money to donate anyway, which means your salaries, you can't keep them up with inflation. Like there's so many things working against us as artists. We don't even realize that we are employees, if you work for these institutions, that have no bargaining power to increase your income. Oftentimes they'll just cut the size of the orchestra.
Right.
And I saw this back in 2011, 2012, 2013 with the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. And so seeing this, 13, 12, 11 years ago, I was like, man, this might not be the game. I might need to go into business for myself because there are too many things that are working against us. So we need to build more skills. That is my thesis. That is really what I'm going for. We need to build more skills that give us more autonomy, that allow us to thrive in a decentralized manner away from institutions so that we can perform on our own terms.
Hear, hear.
Real quick, you mentioned, I just want to ask this. You said the word unionism once in this conversation, but we kind of left it.
Yeah, let's put that.
Curious, in terms of how unionism impacts us in a positive or negative way, and related to, and this is really what I'm getting at, related to this concept of how we know our value at any given stage of our careers. So we're talking about, okay, you have a kid that is in high school and is tutoring a student and they're making $30 an hour doing it. I'm not charging $30 an hour to teach. I'm not sure those days ever existed, but if they did, it was a very long time ago. How do we get to a point where there's a more universal expectation of the setting of value for what it is that we do? Or is that so individualized that you can't quite come up with a system? Like, at what point does the system work against us or has its own part to play?
It's very complex because we're no longer working with the global marketplace. And now the value and like the quality varies. If you're going to Budapest, you're going to London, or you're going to Melbourne or Sydney, or if you're going to Czechoslovakia Czechoslovakia or Prague. You have to realize like everybody in the world is now competing to record for movies. Everybody in the world is competing to write strings for big artists. So, I don't think there is a way to like collectively bargain globally yet. I think that is what would be required because, there will always be somebody that will take the gig for $100. There'll always be a person who they just want exposure, right? They just want to say that they recorded strings for Justin Bieber to help them get bigger gigs and maybe make money down the road. So there will always be those opportunities. And I don't think any one union can stop it. But I'm optimistic that, if you build yourself a brand that is valuable, that provides a unique value proposition to the marketplace, you won't have to play a commodity game. And I think that is a true conversation. Are you replaceable? The answer is yes. Figure out why and fix it. Because at the end of the day, like we need to be able to charge more than minimum wage to be able to sustain ourselves. And not everybody's going to be able to do it, and that's okay. But we're all on a journey. And if you're not there yet, if you're still in the commodity tier, build your skills, build your moat, make yourself indispensable. And then you will have very different conversations when the time comes.
That's great.
It's a great way to leave it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Drew. This was amazing.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun.
Always such amazing, thought-provoking
My pleasure.
kind of discourse that we have here. It's good.
Absolutely.
I really enjoy speaking with you guys. Definitely let me know if you have any like questions or topics that you want me to talk about on Grace Notes, my newsletter. I definitely want to write this newsletter for people like us who are definitely, we're leaving the matrix a little bit and we're trying to forge our own path.
How can people subscribe to Grace Notes, Drew?
You can go to my Instagram at that Viola Kid, tap the link in my bio. You can click join my newsletter and put your email in there, or you can go to my website, thatviolakid.com, and click on Grace Notes tab and put your email there, and you'll get a new email every Friday.
Everybody go subscribe. You won't be disappointed.
I am.
Thank you again, Drew.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, guys. Appreciate you.
Thank you so much for listening today. If you loved this episode, consider writing us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, or wherever you listen.
Thanks also to our season sponsor, Potter Violins.
If you'd like to support the podcast and get access to bonus content, consider joining our Patreon community.
You can buy all your musician-centric merch, including shirts, water bottles, koozies, and a variety of other fun items.
Our theme music was written and produced by JP Wogeman and is performed by Steph and myself.
Our episodes are produced by Liz O'Hara and edited by Emily McMahon.
Thanks again for listening. Let's talk soon.